So this tutorial will show you the tools and strategies that you will need to find the literature criticism for your English 312 and 336 research projects. I want to start off with a brief explanation about the difference between primary and secondary sources in English literature research. So for these classes, the primary source is going to be the play or the piece of literature that you are studying. You probably already have that at this point. What I'm going to show you today is how to find secondary sources or scholarly information about that play or piece of literature. So you may find this information in full-length books or book chapters. Tons and tons of information has been written on Shakespeare, his individual works, his individual characters, his individual poems. You'll find a lot on other famous Renaissance authors as well. So to find books and chapters, you want to use either the online catalog or the database called WorldCat. So if you're looking first for books that are available in our library, whether that is electronic or a physical book, you'll want to start with the online catalog. You will find the catalog on our homepage by clicking on the Catalog tab. Then you will see a search box and you can put your search terms in the box. Then click on the search button and see what comes up. So for the search terms Ophelia and Hamlet, if I were looking up information about the character Ophelia, I get 6 results. For each entry, you will see the call number, and that will be the ticket to finding it on the shelf. If you have any problems or any anxiety about finding a book on a shelf, please ask me or another librarian for help, and if we are available, we will always be happy to go upstairs and help you find it. Most of the things that you find for this class are going to be in the P section, which is the call number for literature, and that will be on the 4th floor of the library. Sometimes you will see books that say downloadable, like this one called Shakespeare's Letters. This means that it is an electronic book, and if I click on it, I will get taken to the book. One of the nice things about ebooks is that you can use the search box to find exactly what you're looking for. So you'll notice in my overall list of book results that Ophelia is not in the title of any of these books. We don't have any entire books written on the character of Ophelia. But if you click on any of them to get to what we call the detailed record page, you will be able to find how Ophelia appears in the record. So oftentimes under contents, it will give you the chapter names. And this is an anthology where chapters are written by individual authors, and the first one is representing Ophelia. If you don't find what you need in the Snowden Library's catalog, or if you find the name of a book that sounds like it will be really helpful and we don't have it, you can go to the databases list on the library homepage, click on the W, and you can click on the database WorldCat. The search box looks like this, and I'm going to do the same search. I'm going to show you a few very useful limiters. I'm going to limit my search to books because many of these other format types are not available to be delivered through interlibrary loan. I'm going to say I do not want any children's books, so not juvenile. And then also I want to say not fiction. And so this should get rid of the primary sources and any other novels that have been written with the character of Ophelia in it. So while I only got 6 results in our online catalog, I get 846 here. And notice that it will let me limit to just English, so I get just under 700 results. We have a lot more in WorldCat than we had in our online catalog because WorldCat is a database that brings together the catalog of thousands of participating libraries. So it helps you see what all books are available out there. So as I scroll through the results, I can easily see which ones are at Lycoming College, such as the 3rd one here. And this is one that came up in the online catalog. But you'll notice that many of these other ones are not. So let's say I click on this one. When I go into the detailed record, it will highlight my key terms, and you will see Hamlet and Ophelia are highlighted here, meaning that these are most likely the chapter titles, and so there is a chapter in this book on Hamlet and Ophelia. At this point, I could do one of two things. I can ask for the entire book to be delivered through interlibrary loan, or I can ask for the chapter. Let me first show you how to request an entire book, and that's very easy by clicking on Request this item. If you've ever used interlibrary loan before, once you sign in, it will fill in all the information for you, and then all I have to do is click Submit Request, and the book will be on its way. Remember that books that have to be physically sent through the mail will take roughly a week to arrive at the Snowden Library for you to pick up. You'll get an email and you can pick it up at the front desk. So the other option is to request just the book chapter. And if you found the book chapter through WorldCat, you will need to log into Interlibrary Loan System separately. You can click on For Students on the library homepage, then click on Interlibrary Loan. You can sign in. And if you've never used Interlibrary Loan, this is the way you'll want to get to there the first time, because you'll have to register. And it's easier to register if you are not actually requesting anything. And I can click on the link for requesting a book chapter. You can cut and paste information from this page onto this page. It would be helpful to include every piece of information on this form that you would include for a book chapter citation. In this case, you're probably not going to have the inclusive pages, so just say under inclusive pages, not available, but you do need to include the chapter title as you see it in WorldCat. If you see the ISBN, you probably want to include that as well. That can speed up the request. Book chapters will be sent to you by email within a few days. So you'll probably notice when you're in the online catalog that many of the books on a particular topic are grouped together by call number. The section on Shakespeare is around PR 2000, and you will notice that we have shelves and shelves and shelves of books on Shakespeare, including several ongoing anthologies, including chapters that are gathered each year into these bound anthologies. You may want to figure out where your browsing area is for your subject and go up to the 4th floor and see what is there. So moving on to databases. These databases contain mostly articles, but you may also find some book chapters in there. So the biggest literature database is the MLA International Bibliography. MLA stands for Modern Language Association. They're the same organization that creates the MLA Citation Manual. Each of these 4 databases is pretty different from each other. So I want to give you a brief tour of each. The MLA database is an EBSCO database and so has a similar interface to many other databases that you may have used, including Snowden Super Search. So I'm going to keep searching for information on Ophelia. And you will see that this search gets 291 results. Now there are several different ways to limit these results. I want to see first if I can find some articles that are really focused on Ophelia. And one way I can try to do that is by saying I want Ophelia's name to be in the title. So if I redo the search, I still have about 200 results, and now all of my titles have Ophelia in the title. There are many useful limiters. I don't think that publication date is going to be particularly useful to this assignment, even though it may be in your sciences and social sciences articles. I highly suggest that you do not use the linked full text. You will see that of the 200 articles, only 13 are available in full text. This limiter limits to only the ones that are full text in this particular database. It excludes the articles that are available in another database that you can still have within a few clicks, ones that we may have in full text in print on the 2nd floor of the library, or ones that you can get through interlibrary loan pretty quickly. I hope you see that you don't really want to reduce your results from 200 down to 13 by using this limiter. And there may be times that you want to limit by source type. I highly suggest that you avoid dissertations, as we don't have them here at the Snowden Library and they can be hard to get through interlibrary loan. If you find one that is really interesting, go ahead and try to get it through interlibrary loan, but generally I suggest avoiding those dissertations. We have full text access to almost everything in JSTOR. It's important to remember that the most recent articles from the past few years are not going to appear in here, but given the topic of the class, that shouldn't be a large problem. So if I look for Ophelia and Hamlet in all fields, I get over 5,000 results. And you may need to go back and limit to just Ophelia's name in the title if that is useful to you. However, looking at the first few results, I think that there could be a lot of useful information in these. So notice over here on the left of the page, JSTOR allows you to limit by subject. And so you can see that there are many things like education and engineering that couldn't possibly be relevant to your assignment. One of the things that you can do is go down to language and literature, and that will reduce your results further, getting rid of all of those ones that just by subject alone cannot be relevant to you. So another database that you can use is the World Shakespeare Bibliography. This is a database entirely about Shakespeare, and it's also important to note that there is no full text in here. So if I want to search, I'll click Search and Browse. So I'm going to use the advanced search of this database. And I'm going to just type in Ophelia because everything in this database is about Shakespeare, which means I don't have to be quite so specific as I did in the other databases where there are other Ophelias. But I'm pretty sure Shakespeare only had the one in Hamlet, so I shouldn't need to say Hamlet. So if I type in Ophelia, the other thing that I need to do is limit to document type. And I'm going to say book chapter, book monograph, and journal articles are the only source types that I want because I'm not going to be able to get the other ones that are cataloged in this database. So if I click on search, I get 881 results, and I can go through and see which look interesting. Now notice that it doesn't provide a whole lot of information. Under the annotation, this one says it's a poem, so I'm not thinking that it's going to be useful to me. So here's an example where the annotation gives you a little more information that can help you decide whether or not you want this. So I'm going to copy this because I want to figure out where to get the full text. One of the ways that you can find the full text, particularly for a journal article, is to copy the title of the article, go to Snowden Super Search on the library's homepage, and enter that information there. Now this title is short, so I'm actually surprised that I only get one result, but I did get the result that I wanted. So this is the article that I found in the World Shakespeare Bibliography. I can click on Lycoming Availability, and from here it will tell me we have the Journal Shakespeare newsletter in print on the second floor of the library, and I can go get it there. Book chapters are a little bit more challenging. You're going to want to see if we have the book available, either electronically or in print, and get the chapter that way, or submit a request through WorldCat for the book chapter that you are looking for that you have found in World Shakespeare Bibliography. At any point you can copy and paste the information from World Shakespeare Bibliography into an interlibrary loan request form. Just be sure that you include everything that you would need for a citation. The last database is a freely available database, Google Scholar. So if I look for Ophelia and Hamlet, I get over 27,000 results, and all of these are scholarly articles. There aren't very many ways to limit other than adding additional keywords, which you may want to do, such as madness or gender or something like that, which will narrow down the results. The main thing about Google Scholar that I need to point out is that on campus you will see the full text over here on the right side of the page a lot more often than you will see that if you are searching from off campus. So at any point, if you see something in Google Scholar that you want that you don't see the full text for, then you may have to copy the title of the article and put it into Snowden Super Search like we just did for the World Shakespeare Bibliography and find it that way. At any point, if you find something that you want and you do not understand how to get the full text to it, please send me the citation and I will find it for you. Your professor wants you to make sure that a certain number of your articles are peer-reviewed. And while most of the sources that I'm showing you are scholarly, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are peer-reviewed. So the first question is, what does peer review mean? So let's say there is a Shakespeare scholar who writes a manuscript on some aspect of Shakespeare. This is the author and this is the manuscript. He sends it to the journal that he wants to get this manuscript published in. So here is the journal and here is the editor. That editor will send the manuscript to two, usually, peer reviewers. And those will be people who have high levels of specialization in the particular area that the manuscript covers. And so these specialists will read through, think about this manuscript very carefully. They may give some feedback on how to make it better, but it needs to meet their approval before it can get published. So once it has their approval and the editor agrees to publish it, it will be published in that peer-reviewed journal. So notice it is the journal that decides to be peer-reviewed. It's at the journal level that that decision is made. And so the databases that are suggested for this don't do the greatest job of helping you be sure that an article is peer-reviewed. So I'm going to take Shakespeare Newsletter. So the name of the journal, not the article. Go to a database called Ulrichs. I'll be looking for the journal with the same name, so Shakespeare Newsletter, and if it is peer-reviewed, then you will see a jersey that looks like something a referee would wear in a football or soccer match. This is because the word refereed and peer-reviewed can mean the same thing, and so this particular journal, Shakespeare Newsletter, is not peer-reviewed. However, there is another journal called Shakespeare, and that one is peer-reviewed, as is Shakespeare Quarterly. So let's talk about some tips and tricks for searching in the databases. Finding the right keywords is an important part of using the database. Think about using the titles of the play, themes in the play, characters, authors, etc. So looking back at Ophelia, some of the themes that I saw were madness or gender. And so I could use madness or insanity as one of the keywords that I looked at if that's what I wanted to focus on when writing my paper about Ophelia. It's going to be important to use Boolean operators. By far the most common is AND. So in the MLA database, if I just look for Ophelia, I find a lot of results that have nothing to do with Hamlet or Shakespeare. Any of the results that I would want are going to have the name Hamlet in it, as it's the name of her love interest as well as the play. So if I search for Ophelia and Hamlet, a much higher percent of the results are going to be relevant to what I'm looking for. In the second picture, I show you not and or. And is going to be used in almost all of your searches. However, these other two are less likely. Or is still fairly common when there's multiple ways of saying something, like the example of madness or insanity. Both of those words mean the same thing as far as my search goes. And to get the most comprehensive list of results, I would want to use both in the same box with the word or. I've created the silly example for how you would use not. This particular example doesn't actually do anything in the databases, but let's say that you did a search for Romeo and Juliet, and many of the results that you're finding are about the song that has been sung by Indigo Girls or originally Dire Straits. So if I wanted to get rid of any of the results that mention Indigo Girls and Dire Straits, because the ones that I'm looking for aren't going to mention them, I could say Romeo and Juliet, not Indigo Girls or Dire Straits. I've seen this as useful in psychology, where students are looking for research done on humans, and much of the research studies in their results are on rats or monkeys, so they could say not rats, for example, and get rid of those results. It's not common, but when you're finding a lot of the results have some commonality that you don't want, and you want to eliminate them, that's when not becomes very useful. Truncation can be useful when you're looking for something that has possible variations of a word. For example, Shakespeare or Shakespearean. You can cut off the word where it starts to differ and replace it with the asterisk, which is found over the 8 key, and that will look up all variations of a root word all at once. The databases sometimes will look for phrases better than others. If you're looking for a famous quote in a play or piece of literature, you probably want to put it in quotation marks such as to be or not to be. and that will look for that phrase as a phrase. And then finally, one other very useful tip, and this is something that professional scholars do a lot, is when you start to find some really useful results, a really good book chapter or a really good article, look at the bibliography of that resource and go find those books or articles or chapters. Again, please see me if you need any help finding the full text of something that you find in a bibliography. Also, if you want to see who has cited that really great source, a good way to do this is Google Scholar. This would be for articles and books and book chapters. They cover a lot of source types. And so if you look up the name of the article or chapter or book that you want to find out who cited, look for where it says cited by, followed by a number. If you click on that link, it will give you the list of items that have cited that resource that you found to be very useful. So finally, I just wanted to introduce the activity that follows this, and that is a worksheet. So I've given you a screenshot of the worksheet for English 336. There's also a separate one for English 312. And please fill this out and follow the directions on how to submit it. So I am on campus in the library. Please feel free to contact me by phone or by email or stopping by my office, which is on the first floor of the library right by the central stairs, and I will be happy to help you find the full text, help you with your citations, or whatever it is that you need to do well on this assignment.